President Donald Trump with a lengthy address to the nation, also questions and answers, in which he gave a full report to his fellow Americans about the very successful raid that took down Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, an overnight raid by U.S. Special Operations Forces in northwestern Syria. Just to take the main points of the president's almost hour-plus address to the country, first of all, he announced that we have brought the world's #1 terrorist to justice. He specifically announced that al-Baghdadi was dead. He said that that was the #1 national priority, national security priority for him and his administration. He then went into great depth about the operation and especially about the death of al-Baghdadi, who he said escaped through tunnels that apparently were around in the compound there in Idlib province. And this, he said, was a dead-end tunnel. There was no other way out. But Baghdadi took 3 of his children into the tunnel. The American forces, according to the president, had been very meticulous about getting all the children in this compound to safety. But Baghdadi brought 3 of the children into the tunnel with him. And when he realized he was cornered and there was no way out, he exploded his suicide vest, not only killing him, but also killing the 3 children. The president, at pains to make the point that Baghdadi, for all of his bravado, died whimpering and screaming as a coward. And he said he thought that was an important message to deliver to any people who may think of Baghdadi as somebody they want to emulate. And finally, he said that the United States is committed to the total defeat of ISIS and to all terror groups around the world, and that this event today should be a message to all of the terrorists, all of the terrorist wannabes, that none of them should sleep soundly, because no matter how long it takes the U.S. to find them, they will bring our enemies to justice. That's our special report for this morning. Please stay tuned to Fox News Channel and this Fox station for continuing coverage of this story. I'm Chris Wallace in Washington.
This has been a Fox News Special Report.
And joining us now here in studio, the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for coming in today to talk with us.
Thank you, Chris. It's a great day for America. Al-Baghdadi, the most wanted man in the world, is dead. And it is a tribute to the courage of our armed forces and to the decisiveness of our Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States.
Take us into, I know you said that you were in the Situation Room. The President said that for several hours. Take us into the Situation Room. A couple of points. First of all, I remember when the U.S. took out bin Laden, most accounts were that it was only about a 50-50 likelihood that bin Laden, in fact, was in that compound in Pakistan. What were the sort of prospects? What were the odds that, in fact, it was Baghdadi on the ground? And what kind of, intelligence did we have? How good was it? And take us through that time. You said it was several hours in the Situation Room.
Well, you heard the President this morning commend not only our special forces that took down al-Baghdadi, but also the extraordinary work of our intelligence agencies. As the President said this morning, we had some indication in the last week that we had a location. But it was Thursday afternoon that the President and I were informed that there was a high probability that al-Baghdadi was going to be in that compound in the Idlib province. At that point, President Trump asked our armed forces leadership to develop options. He was presented with those options on Friday morning, and he made an immediate decision that as the information developed, and it developed through the morning, Saturday morning, Eastern time, that we would move forward with an operation against al-Baghdadi. So some indication a week earlier, strong confirmation that came on Saturday, but to have been in the Situation Room, Chris, to watch this attack unfold in real time, just made me so proud to be an American, proud to see our special forces, their extraordinary courage and professionalism. And also, I want to say very proud to be Vice President to a President who acted so decisively to take down a man who was a threat to this country and a threat to the world as the leader of ISIS.
The President talked about watching it, he said, almost as if it were a movie. I mean, did you have video on the ground and you're able to see what's going on in the compound and then as the forces go into that tunnel chasing al-Baghdadi?
I think it's important that we don't talk about our capabilities, but let me say that we had eyes on what was happening in real time. And the president in the Situation Room was able, in addition to reports coming in from the field, to know exactly what was taking place. It was truly extraordinary. Again, to literally witness in real time our special forces, their professionalism, the swift manner in which they got on the target, executed the operation, and moved out in just a matter of a few short hours it was deeply inspiring.
Now, the president made it sound as if U.S. forces, U.S. military, U.S. intelligence had a really good sense of what the situation was inside that compound, even the idea of these tunnels, and that one of them there was an exit, most of them were dead end. Again, obviously being careful not to give away sources and methods. How did we know so much about that compound?
Well, it was a combination of intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and just outstanding work by our team in the field. But what President Trump demonstrated here is, even while we're bringing our troops home from the safe zone on the border of Turkey, that this president and America's resolve to defeat ISIS and to hunt down and destroy any terrorist organization in the world is unrelenting, and that's what the world woke up to learn this morning.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that, because the president has come under a lot of fire from both Republicans and Democrats about pulling U.S. troops out of Syria. Not all, but the vast majority of them. He's also talked about trying to draw down in Afghanistan, and he has said, that's what I campaigned on, to put an end to endless wars. Here's what he said just this last week about pulling back from the Middle East.
We never agreed to protect the Kurds for the rest of their lives. It was supposed to be a very quick hit, and let's get out, and it was a quick hit, except they stayed for almost 10 years. Let someone else fight over this long, blood-stained sand.
Mr. Vice President, what do you think this raid shows about the U.S. posture? Does it basically say, yes, we'll be in the Mideast forever, but not necessarily with big forces, maybe with a more targeted, smaller footprint counterintelligence force? What does it say?
Well, as you just said, what the president said today, what this shows is the United States remains committed to the total defeat of ISIS and any terrorist organization that threatens our country. But this is a president also, and I say this as the father of a United States Marine, with real gratitude in my heart. The president doesn't want our forces anywhere other than where they have to be, making fights that we know they have to make in our vital national interests, Chris. And at the end of the day, the president looked at the mission. We sent troops into Syria in combination with Syrian Democratic Forces, our allies. We went in. The territory of the ISIS Caliphate was totally captured and destroyed in March of this year. But what happened was an evolving mission that ended up with a small number of U.S. troops essentially positioned on the border of Turkey between traditional Kurdish Syria and the Turkish military. And the president said, we're bringing our troops home, but the minute that Turkish forces entered Syria, the president imposed punishing sanctions, sent our team to Ankara, Turkey, to negotiate a ceasefire. We were able to create a 5-day window where our allies, the Syrian Defense Forces, were able to safely withdraw, and now the international community will be working with to certify and to create that safe zone. But again, that's all about making sure that we create stability in the region. We call our European partners to that task as well. But what the American people woke up to this morning, what the world woke up to this morning, is the resolve of the President of the United States and the armed forces of the United States to use force whenever is necessary to confront those who threaten us or our people.
Near the end of the news conference, the president was asked specifically whether he had informed the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, about this raid last night. And he said no, and then he added, I wanted to make sure that no American forces were lost. The implication seeming to be that he was worried that Pelosi or members of Congress would leak this. Does the president not trust the Speaker of the House with sensitive national security information?
Chris, I don't think that was the implication at all. I think from the time that we got actionable intelligence, the president's total focus here was on a successful mission and the safety of American troops.
I understand that, but why didn't he tell Nancy Pelosi?
We maintained the tightest possible security here. And when we got the confirmation on Saturday that al-Baghdadi was on site, and our troops began to move into the region, as the president said, our aircraft were moving over some very potentially hostile areas. We wanted them to be able to get in and get out. It was a dangerous mission on the ground. They went with resolve, the determination of this president to bring al-Baghdadi to justice, but they also went with our prayers. And I just couldn't be more proud. When they were wheels up, out of country, no American casualties, and al-Baghdadi is dead.
We all applaud that. I do want to ask you, though, I mean, it's my job as a newsman, sir, respectfully, why didn't the president notify the Speaker of the House?
Chris, I just want to emphasize the president's focus here throughout, particularly the last several days, was on the mission to bring a man who is the most wanted man in the world, a man who had brought unspeakable violence through the ISIS caliphate, who was exporting violence around the world, to justice. And that, combined with ensuring the safety of our forces, coming in, executing their mission, and moving out, was the president's directive throughout this effort. And I know it animated every decision that he made along the way. And let me also say what a privilege it was for me to be a small part of this and in the Situation Room, because we mourn with those who mourn and grieve with those who grieve. Our hearts are with Kayla Mueller's family, James Foley's family, Stephen Sotloff. But as a Hoosier, I will tell you that I remember when Peter Kassig was killed. It broke the heart of the people of Indiana. I spent time with his parents. And for me to be sitting alongside a president who brought the man responsible to that to justice will be something that I cherish the rest of my life.
We all celebrate the victory. I have a couple of other questions I do need to ask you, because obviously the world goes on even after this extraordinary achievement by the president and the U.S. military. The military success comes at the same time that Democrats are pursuing an impeachment inquiry to remove this president. Do you see a conflict there?
I don't know that I don't know that I really understand the question. The Democrats in Congress have been pursuing an impeachment by and large for the last 3 years. And I think what the American people have seen in the last 12 hours, what they've seen in the last 3 years, is President Donald Trump has never stopped fighting to keep the promises that we made to the people in the election in 2016.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you think in some way that the president conducting this military operation in any way invalidates or counters the argument by Democrats about the need to pursue impeachment?
I think what counters the Democrats' latest effort to pursue impeachment is the president's record. The facts in this particular instance. People can read the transcript, see there was no quid pro quo. The president did nothing wrong. But I think the totality of the last 3 years, we've rebuilt our military. The largest increases in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. We've revived the economy, 6.5 million jobs, more than 160 conservatives to our federal courts. And whether it be the action the president took with 58 cruise missiles in Syria, or the successful efforts of our armed forces last night at the direction of this commander-in-chief, America is more secure this morning. America is more prosperous today. And we're just going to keep fighting for that agenda and taking that agenda to the American people.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. Thanks for standing by with us as we watch the President's speech. Thank you so much for coming in today, and congratulations to all the U.S. military forces, intelligence, the whole crew involved in this great day, this great success for America. Thank you very much for being here with us today, sir.
Thank you, Chris.